for August 2026, I selected a vacation summer lecture, meaning that I thought to inject a little humor and mystique and interesting stuff versus some of the other more serious or more inherently profound lectures. I think that all the lectures are profound, but some of them can be fun at the same time, and some of them dance around on different topics. The question and answer lectures were originally conceived to be they'd have a central topic once a month, and then a fortnight later, 2 weeks later, they'd have a question and answer opportunity. Then a topic, opportunity for questions, topic, opportunity. Didn't always work out that way, but that was the plan. Originally, the question and answer sessions were numbered in sequence, and later they just became appended to. So you'll have 251, 251 QA, versus this one, which is Patrick Lecture 61, is a Q&A, and you can call it 61 or 61 QA, doesn't matter. But it's a sequence published number. Now, some of the Q&As are just random. They're whatever was brought up at the time. Sometimes they referred back to the previous lecture, sometimes to the last several lectures. When that happens, I try to reference that. When someone says, but the last time you said, I try to find that. Sometimes it's 2 lectures back, etc. And sometimes they were on completely new topics. And sometimes they were aberrant questions that aren't repeated or made much of, but they're still interesting questions. Questions that people in good faith feel that come up in studying spiritual matters. With 61, I felt that part of the fun for me, and hoping that other people see this fun part, was that it was a little science fiction-y. It was a little bit about worlds or realities beyond the human perception. And what intrigued me was how the guide attempted to marry human perception with his understanding, his explanation of reality, and explain why the differences would occur. Very often the guide emphasizes that something is a paradox, which is apparent contradiction rather than an actual contradiction. That sometimes it's just that you have different frames of reference, and you may have to change your frame of reference to understand the language or the words that the guide is using. And he often says, I'm having difficulty explaining this to you. Human language is limiting. It focuses into discrete elements, and he's doing that in a single language when there may be other words in other languages, but that's not the medium that was being used. So I subtitled Patrick Lecture 61, Human Perceptions of Spiritual Reality, and I highlighted the questions. And in this first section, in week 1, I looked at the questions around the idea of who incarnates here and why do they do it? And the idea was that, or the viewpoint expressed by the guide was that the earth is a great place for spiritual development, that we offer an opportunity for accelerated growth and development that is desirable. And the idea in multiple lectures is that, and I'm going to rephrase this into a colloquialism, or I call it stand-up comedy routine version. There are no gate crashers on the planet Earth. You don't have people wandering in out of curiosity. You don't have people wandering in to throw a spanner in the works or to mess things up. There's a set of regulations governing the Earth, and you come in, you've got to have a plan, and the plan's got to be signed off, literally signed off by higher authorities, people who are in charge of doing this. So that the plan is either created by you and or your team, and it's got to pass inspection, and then you come here with the appropriate resources to manifest that plan. Now, the human perception is, well, then I want to be wealthy and famous. That's not a spiritual plan. That's the effect of various actions, and those effects could be good or bad. Having fame and fortune, as some people may read about in stories, biographies of people, is not all we think it is. I collect stories of lottery winners who have a lot of trouble with handling sudden wealth, and also stories of people who have inherited wealth, who grew up with it, who are so insulated from the world that they don't really function well. There's no silver bullet to spiritual work, but we can interpret material reality to say, well, that's easy and this is hard. But that's our perception, and that's what this lecture addresses, this perception versus reality. So I'm going to launch into it. So the purpose of human life on Earth, or the purpose of humanity, is an opportunity to accelerate by being able to manifest and experience the truth of what we've come here to explore. Either we are holding a false belief that we're going to find out why it is false and where it is false and what the ramifications are. And I like to analogize this to, some people think, oh, that sounds like a good idea, when more experienced people might say it's not a good idea for these 7,300 reasons. But the person who has not experienced this might say, well, you just weren't doing it right, or I think I can do better. And the opportunity here is give it a try. See how it works. We tried to advise you, but it didn't work. So come here and experience it for yourself. Also, there's such a thing on the planet as a good intention that has unintended consequences. False beliefs can sound great, and we may not be able to imagine the unintended consequences of them. But we bring it here to the planet Earth, act it out, and there they are. I also speak of false beliefs, misconceptions, and distortions. I like to imagine that a lot of the people that I work with are not working with major false beliefs, in that they're not zooming off into catastrophe, and it's not a hugely dramatic life event. So they may be dealing with more subtle points. Now, those may still impact tremendously an individual life. They may still destroy careers. They may devastate a family. They may have a tremendous effect. But the actual cause is not a false belief so much, but a misconception around spiritual truth, or a distortion of spiritual truth. So the idea is that if negativity can't get us to sign up with the wrong idea, they'll just shade the right idea and lead us astray in a different way. So we're here to accelerate this process of experiencing how things work out, and to grow and develop faster. I'm constantly analogizing. I'm constantly using metaphors because I get lost in abstractions. If you want to drive a car or a vehicle of any kind, and you don't know how to drive, it's not a good idea to go fast. It's better to start slow and develop your skills and your experience before you get into basically a race car. But some of us jump into race cars, and some of us don't listen to advice, so we zoom off. And we don't have the skill and experience to manage. It's not the race car, it's the driver. And that's what we learn about our own capacities and abilities. But we also learn about power that way, the power of truth. Just give me the truth and I'll make it work. Means give me the power of truth, which may impress a lot of people and draw people to me, but I don't have the skill and experience to manage the reality of different people's responses, reactions, etc., how they may wish to manipulate or twist. so that I can't handle the power if it was given to me. So we underestimate our own capacities, and this can be an education. I've had such educations. I don't like them. They're unpleasant, painful, destroy my sense of pride, and they're devastating. But how else will I learn except to see where I am deficient? And that's what we do here. We find out what works and what doesn't work. The idea is that we are affecting the people around us to the degree that they need to be involved. And so I'm going to use the phrase gerrymandering in the United States to get voting populations of a certain type. They draw maps that look like bizarre shapes with arms and legs and sticky out bits. And we may gerrymander our sphere of influence so that we're only tapping into people with similar issues, either for or against what we're trying to do, so that we can say I influence everyone, but that's not true. That's up to the other people, whether they are truly influenced or just observers of what we're doing. So that I can't make someone do anything. I can influence them, I can model, and they may choose to join, but I don't have the power to make them do something. So to some extent, each person is independent, and yet there's a connection here. There's a connection between our false beliefs, misconceptions, and distortions. Some of the questions. Population growth. Why are there so many people? And it's an interesting answer that there are more spirits ready for this phase. Basically, Earth as an opportunity is a great opportunity, and there are more spirits ready for this opportunity. That there is an acceleration of growth and development in the world of spirit. So there's a bigger class size ready to enroll. Also, that some people are ready to have another go round, another turn on the earth faster than they used to. So, according to the guide, when someone passed on when they died, they would get some remedial training. I can imagine the kind of remedial training they'll offer me. And get remedial training and schooling and so forth. And then they come back with a new or a more refined version of their incarnatory arc. But the guide's saying they may come back much faster. So you've got a bigger line waiting to get in, and you've got returns waiting to be reprocessed, and you wind up with more people. Yes, but this causes crime and terror. And yet the guide says, and this is borne out statistically, compared to the level of crime, violence, and mayhem that happened on the planet, 300, 500, 2,000 years ago. The same proportions don't happen today. We wouldn't be able to survive. Now, some happens, that's true. And the truth is that we know about it. Instead of it being shrouded by another country that we don't hear about until 300 years later when the history book is published, we hear about it that morning on our newsfeed. And it shifts our perception of what's going on in the world. That something that may happen, I don't even want to use the word 1 or 2%, something that happens a tenth of 100th of a percent around the world affects a very small number of people, but it makes it into our newsfeed, and it makes it seem more prominent than it actually is. So back to the guide statement that comparatively, the percentage of crime, violence, mayhem has gone down, and that permits more people to live together on the planet. The global connectedness is also part of our acceleration process. We see things as worldwide issues more than we ever did before because we have experience, we have feedback, we have facts from other parts of the globe. This is new. This is very new. So during the last world wars, it took sometimes weeks for news to get from one section of a war zone or an incident to make it through so that everybody knew about it. You'd hear about something weeks or months later, very often not till years later, and now it's instant. And it accelerates the impact on everyone. It raises the vibration. And again, the cycle of attracting more people to this wonderful opportunity. For growth and development versus pleasure is a difference. The pleasure is long-term versus short-term. So I focused the entire study guide this week on visualizations instead of exercises. I invited people to take what the guide said and imagine what it looks like. This follows my attitude towards Patrick concepts, and that is that you need to try them on. You need to walk around in them, see how they operate. You can't just look at them from the outside and say, bad idea, good idea. Like life, you need to step in. You need to walk in those shoes. So imagine, at one point, the guide talks about incarnations on different planets don't have the same experience. What does that mean? This is where we enter the world of science fiction. A lot of movie references. Pick the one that appeals to you. But just look at the idea that there might be incarnations on the planet Jupiter. It's a gas giant. Not going to be human. Not going to be carbon-based, walking around with skin. Okay, too hot, too freezing, too whatever. It's not conducive to the kind of life that we see here on Earth. And if it's a gas giant, where's the ground? What do you stand on? So what kind of life incarnation would be referenced there? Would it be a gaseous incarnate? What would it be like to incarnate as a gaseous cloud of stuff? Once again, this is the world of science fiction. There was a famous Star Trek episode. I'm a Trekkie. There was a famous Star Trek episode about a being that inhabited a cloud. And in the days of inexpensive television, they created an image of a little cloudy bit with rough edges that sparkled and moved. What's it like to be that? And in this Star Trek episode, the cloud being did not understand human beings until it entered into a human being and incarnated, because the being was dying, and it by incarnating it helped it live. So it was beneficial to both parties. It entered into the body and experienced what it was like to live in a body created in solid matter that was defined, that had edges, that could not truly connect with another person, even in contact. And the remark from this gaseous being was, how lonely. How can you stand it? Because as a gaseous being, there was no separation between it and beings. It could feel, it could sensor. So again, apologize a bit for going off on a personal interest aspect, but that's what I invite you to consider when you look at these questions. What would it look like? What would it feel like? What would you learn from an incarnation on a icy rock or a gas giant or in the middle of a star? What would be possible? And to see the guide's words from a wider perspective than the human perception. So it goes on. It gets crazier and crazier in Patrick Lecture 61. I hope you enjoy it. I have cut a bit out, so please read the entire lecture. It is online. And thanks for listening.